Hey everyone, this is our little Facebook Q&A with Pius Chang, and I'm Casey Cangelosi. I asked you guys to give me some questions since I'm visiting Pius here at the University of Oregon, and you guys gave us some nice questions, so thanks for that. First question we'd like to answer is from Jack D. Heck. He'd like to ask Pius the process involved in writing his concerto for marimba and strings. Was there any commission involved? What was the inspiration for the piece? How's preparation going for the premiere next month?
Well, there was no commission, but I just wanted to write something for marimba and string orchestra because the technicality of it, like I could arrange it for marimba and string quintet, string orchestra, string quartet, or smaller string groups, so I get more play out of it.
It's flexible.
It's more flexible.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, because marimba is not a very loud instrument, and the most attractive attribute, like we discussed, is like the how soft we can play and the range of dynamic rather than like actual like loud volume. So with a string orchestra, I find the percussiveness of the marimba balances out really well with the legato lusciousness of the string orchestra, while still being able to stay in the comfort zone of the marimba to express itself. And preparation for premiere is going well. Actually, the premiere is going to be with a string quintet. So
yeah,
exactly the reason why the string and marimba combination I think works.
Everyone says your music's really hard, or the string part's like ridiculously hard.
The string parts are pretty easy. Like that's one of the first things that like the composition teachers has told me.
Yeah.
Don't write anything too hard if you expect a good performance out of it.
Yeah. It's a good piece. I really like, I think we both like the concertos that we have out there, the marimba concertos.
Yeah.
But this one is really cool. I think it's like a really good addition to what's going on. Well, what's the next? So if you don't know, you should hunt it down. What's the next composition question?
From Benjamin
Scalen. Yeah.
Hope you're saying your name right. I would love to know how you each go about composing and what your process is. I'd like to also know what each of you did to get your chops to where they were. Let's talk about the composition first.
Yeah, composition. Yeah, there's some other questions I think that involve technique and things. Well, I don't know. It's usually the process. I find I'm usually thinking about the piece for sometimes a few days, sometimes a month. I think there's one I've loaded up right now I've been thinking about for just almost 6 months, and once you conceptualize it long enough, I feel like it just kind of pours out. Once you've thought it through, then it's just busy work after that. So that's sort of what it's like for me right now. I suspect that changes and evolves over the years, but that's how it is right now. What about you?
So mine changes also like over the years, so depending on the piece.
Yeah.
A couple of my existing pieces, like the Etude in E minor and the musical moment number 5, the Romance, those came out about an hour.
Yeah.
But there are other ones, like the concerto, took me a few years because I sketched the first version, hated it, scratched it, edited it, and just keep on revolving it. But it's either like a spur of the moment thing, or a spur of the moment I get a little chunk of information that I want to play with, and then I set it aside, and then I keep developing it either in my head or on paper.
Sure.
So start small and work big is usually
that's a good thing. I always find I write too much, know, and it's a matter of reducing and taking the smaller piece and expanding it.
And that's usually how it goes. So you like shove everything there, and then you write as much as you can. Then you go back and take out what's unnecessary.
Right. Yeah. Same thing. And they say that about all the classic composers. Like there's so much repetitious material. Let's see. Next composition question. Okay, for both of us, what kind of form elements do you think about while composing, if any? Curious as to how your writing begins and the process you have to continue and finish any of your works. Yeah, I don't know. Do you ever have a problem finishing, or a problem starting?
Problem starting?
Yeah.
Could be, but I don't write that much, so I don't really start writing until I want to start writing.
Yeah.
So that's not really a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's a commission, but usually I have a few ideas saved up already.
Yeah.
But kind of the form elements, I think that's interesting because I think it's harder to get away from the forms that
Yeah.
we're already comfortable with, already know, or just try to break away from the form because we're both like pretty trained,
Yeah.
you know, music theory and analysis to, you know, have to make something out of it, and it's also human instincts to want to produce something in some kind of logical sense.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to take away that human instincts and, you know, explore a new path.
Yeah.
I'd say that's, you know, a
Yeah.
continual progress of exploration.
Sure. Do you find like, oh, I need to break away from form? Like, do you feel
It's
like
interesting.
just
I mean,
because your natural instinct is to follow it strictly? So do you feel like, well, I better
I mean,
do
there
the opposite?
of course there are
Just for
times
your
when
own
I'm
growth.
like, oh yeah, I like this, and then it just goes. But
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
it's always interesting to try new things.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to write the same piece twice.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, same thing. I had an interesting discussion with Lachlan. You remember Lachlan Fife,
Yeah.
who's also a composer, a friend of ours, Boston Conservatory. And the discussion was, do you have a hard time starting or finishing? And I found we're the exact opposite. Once I start, it's over. You know, like I can do it, like, but that's like what I was saying before. Like, oh, if I can just think it through first, then it's just busy work after that.
Yeah.
So once I can start, I feel like it's almost done. You know.
Sometimes I start it and then I plan an ending
Yeah.
and then I fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Sometimes in there it's just pretty much math. It's just kind of, all right.
Yeah, and I think I like that you say the word math because sometimes I get asked a lot like, what's your inspiration and where's like the magic come from? And a lot of times it's just mechanics. You know, a lot of times it's not fuzzy feelings all the way through. It's maybe a fuzzy feeling when you get the first idea.
Yeah,
you know,
it
but then
comes-
it's just a lot of work. It
Yeah.
feels a lot like practicing to me.
I guess, you know, it always reverts to that duality in music. Like there's the logical and emotional like struggle, and then and then there's you know the logical and emotional. Like even in composition, we have the emotional. It starts with a cell or some kind of feeling you want to sketch out, and then after that it becomes the logical. You want to explain what that feeling was.
Cool. Yeah. I've always said that like the math is emotional too. You know, it's they're ingrained. Like people try to separate like the head from the heart, and you know, you hear people say stuff like, oh, you know, it can't be too mechanical. It's got to be all from here. But I think they're more related. You know.
I mean, I'm sure you've heard your dad, who is a mathematician, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Like talk about how elegant his solutions are.
It's so artistic.
Yeah.
Like it's totally artistic. Like mathematics and philosophy, and like I mean, they're much more of an art, but we don't think about them like that, really.
All right. So
what's Michael Taylor say? That's a composition one.
anything you could mention composition-wise would be great as far as the process. I think we covered that.
He says getting the music played. What about getting the music played?
Give it to your friends. Like I gave it to him. He
Yeah.
gives it to me. I mean, I can't play his music, so
I can't play.
I'm still working on it. I want to play White Knuckle Stroll someday.
I want to play C minor someday. That's my favorite one. Yeah, that's I didn't notice that. That's a new element to
Yeah.
it. Getting it played. Don't be afraid to just
Hand it to friends.
hand it out and let people look at it. And we've had really fun discussions, like you, I, and Erico, like in the practice room. And
Yeah, and that process really helps because sometimes you write something and then it turns out it's actually not as good as it can be. Then your friends have some suggestions.
Yeah.
Like Erica has kicked my butt on many occasions.
Yeah.
And plus, you know, the percussion world I feel is so small that if you have one semi-decent piece, it's gonna get out there like that.
Yeah.
Because we're all thirsty for new repertoire.
And for something like playable and good, there's always some problem like, oh, it's way too hard, or it's...
I mean, you're not very good with the writing playable repertoire.
Neither
Let's
am I.
just face it.
Neither are you. Yeah, it sounds very upsetting.
Although
It's
I do
really
have
nice.
a book called Colors that came out.
Ooh.
A book of intermediate verbal etudes. That should be really good.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, that's good stuff. So
Yeah,
get
advertisement
that.
writing, right?
Actually, it is good. We did lessons. I sat in on his lessons and we kind of team taught, and I just kind of hovered over, and we used the Colors book
Yeah.
once or twice in those, and Yeah,
I think it was good.
I think it's great. I mean, yeah, what you're doing with them is awesome. What else? Last composition question.
Paul Millet. Right?
Yeah, Paul Millet.
Milletti.
Paul Millet?
Yeah. At Basic, I talked briefly to Casey about the symbolism in his two pieces, Wicca and Plato's Cave. And I was wondering if all of the pieces you write have some sort of symbolism to them and what the writing process is for the both of you.
That rings a bell in my head, like program music or pure music.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely not all the pieces have a guided, explanation or program to them, but some of them certainly do. Like Wicca, there's several definitions for the word itself, and that's it. So it's this like quasi-programmatic, like it kind of gives you a very vague guide as to what they should be thinking about, because otherwise music is so abstract, and you could interpret it absolutely anywhere. But then again, it's not to say one's better than the other, because I think we have titles like Wicca and Plato's Cave, and then we have labels like Symphony Number 3. That's just a label. It's not really a title. It's just a way of cataloging it and organizing it. Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think you have more program music.
Yeah,
mine
is
so. Mostly absolute music.
Yeah.
But is there some kind of quote unquote story behind it? Usually there is.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tell people, sometimes I don't, because I'd rather leave it to the interpreter's interpretation, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I don't know, if there's a story, I feel like, why aren't you just reading a story? You know what I mean? Like
that's true.
A lot of time, when I ask people about music, because I'm always talking with my students and my intro to music class, and they almost always I'm like, what do you feel when you listen to this? And it's, instead of them listening to music, it's more like they're listening to a film score. Right. And they're writing a film in their head. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me think, well, why aren't you just read a book? Why don't you watch a movie? But the truth is, the nice thing about pure music or absolute music, like Etude in E minor, it focuses specifically on music's unique message. It communicates on a unique frequency. I think.
Yeah, I think it was Daniel Barenboim that said, if you can say what music can say with words, there would be no need for music. Right. So it kind of applies to all music. Is, if it's just a straight story, that was the point of it. Yeah. Then we would need the music. The music's supposed to express some kind of abstract feeling that we can't even talk about. Yeah. Which is the most beautiful part about it. Yeah. When you hear the guru type people like Leon Fleischer or Alfred Brendel people play, it's not really about the chops. It's not about right. how fancy their right. phrasing is even. They're just beyond that now. It's just you hear you feel this pure message, and you just feel reborn after it. Yeah. Yeah. I feel that way with the guys who are really into contemporary music too. It's all just very cerebral. It's not about in the moment. It's not about second by second. It's about the big picture. Keiko Abe does it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But, I'm not at where Keiko is. We got a lot of work to do. A lot of work. Yeah. All right, let's move on. A bunch of technical questions. Technical questions, yeah.